Thank you all for tuning in. Welcome to this session on creating an environment of positive growth during challenging times. My name is James McIntyre. I'm currently a senior educator at RMIT University, Vietnam. And I also specialize in a lot of teacher well-being. So this is why I'm presenting today. So why is this important? Well, support networks are key to developing our well-being and resilience, particularly during adversity. So this session will explore how students and teachers can co-create a positive community for learning, making them feel more resilient. I use the word co-create because we'll explore what this means on both a community and an individual level. Quite often, students view the teachers as role models. Therefore, it's important that the teacher provides a positive role model for students to follow and set them on the path to success. The positive interventions in this session are based on practical research and focus on building relationships and resilience. I'll start with outlining the features of a supportive learning environment. During delicate times, it's crucial to make sure these are in place so both our learners and colleagues can feel psychologically safe and hopeful as opposed to fearful. We'll then explore some coping strategies that can be applied when necessary. So first of all, what do we mean by community? Well, it's a social unit that shares something in common. This could be customs, values, belief, or identity. There's already a common ground for the formation of a community here. So the shared identity of learning or teaching English in the same school. Shared problems can also bring people together and strengthen bonds. A community is also defined as social relations that extend beyond one's immediate family. Now, for some people, their classmates or teachers may be the only people they have immediately available in their lives. This doesn't need to become a burden, but increased awareness that makes us more sensitive and empathetic. Scientists in the UK and US believe loneliness and social isolation are becoming deadlier than obesity, smoking, and alcoholism. It costs the Australian taxpayers $3 billion a year in health-related costs. Social isolation, loneliness, and living alone all put people at risk of dying prematurely. People under the age of 65 are even more vulnerable. As I mentioned earlier, support networks are key to our well-being. In an 85-year-old study by Dr. Waldinger at Harvard University that's still going on as we speak, they explored various aspects of well-being and found one consistent variable, and that's having someone to rely on. Where that was true, people were happier and lived longer, or are still living. To discover whether you could rely on someone, scientists ask questions like, who would you turn to in a moment of crisis? Who encourages you to take chances and pursue your life goals? Who knows everything about you and can call on you when you're feeling low and you can be honest with what you're feeling? And a whole array of other questions. It's also part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the love and belonging. According to Dr. Albrecht, humans all have 5 basic fears. When we're feeling separated or alone, it can provoke a fear response. When acting out of fear, we're more likely to be reactive, impulsive, and irrational. Whereas looking for connections is a hopeful response and proven to be much more effective. Studies have measured the benefits of community involvement, particularly as a way of fighting depression. Over time, the benefits of community involvement, people showed fewer depressive symptoms, and it helped lessen internalized negative attitudes about oneself, which we'll address later on in this session. It's also led to the development of campaigns like Australia's long-running Act, Belong and Commit campaign. While this may not be an immediate option, there are always ways students and teachers can build their communities. Community is also one of the pillars of resilience, and even in introducing a new theory of well-being, Dr. Martin Seligman, the founder of positive psychology, includes relationships as one of the key factors there. Now we can begin to see all the benefits of communities. Let's explore how we can set them up. We'll first explore how this can be done on a community level. I'm going to walk you through 4 activities. First of all, each student can be assigned an accountability buddy, someone who can check on us every day to see if we're doing okay. Could be a simple message in the morning just to say, hey. It's sometimes hard to reach out to someone about a problem, but if someone comes to you, it can help bridge that gap. This can also work for your colleagues. It doesn't have to be for students. Another way we can build support networks is by forming independent study groups outside of class. The leader could be responsible for arranging a date, time, and place to meet. The teacher wouldn't attend, but could serve as a mentor to the leaders and provide basic resources if needed. This could be something even more casual than studying English. Another fundamental building block to resilience is self-care. It can involve setting goals to improve diet, exercise routines, or trying to read more. And simply, people meet and encourage each other to set and accomplish 30-day goals. It's also important to ask ourselves or our school whether there's access to professional mental health support. Do our teachers have these contact details to hand, should they or their students need them? Being able to refer people should always be an option. At RMIT University, if any of our learners are showing signs of struggle, it's common practice to reach out to them by email or on Teams, or if in person, if that's possible, with links to counselling support. So having a way that there's that communication channel with students is important. And finally, it's crucial that our classrooms are psychologically safe. These are the environments in which we'll see all of our learners the majority of the time. And I'll walk us through what constitutes as a psychologically safe classroom in the next slide. So there may be times in which students or our colleagues share personal information with us, and we're not quite sure what to do. If this happens, there are some fundamental building blocks that can help create a psychologically safe environment or positive community. First of all, the freedom of expression. People who feel heard and able to speak their minds will feel more connected to a community, whereas silence in voices causes people to feel isolated and withdraw. It's crucial to remember that half of our emotions are negative, and more research is suggesting revealing the benefits of being able to acknowledge and work with our negative emotions as opposed to ignore them. A lot of this research has been done by Dr. Todd Kashdan, and you'll find a link in the references section at the end. The next aspect is EPOC, or remaining non-judgmental when people do express their feelings. By recognizing and acknowledging other people's feelings, it validates them. If they're not validated, they become internalized and then harder to address. All too quickly, we can jump to conclusions and be wrong. Instead of rushing to conclusions, we could choose to be more empathetic. People don't always want a solution to their problems, and this is great for us as teachers because it takes some weight off of our shoulders. The weight of feeling like there are more problems to be fixed when in fact we just need to show up and be present. Simply hearing people download or vent is enough. When people are able to express their thoughts and feelings, not only can they be validated, but they gain a stronger sense of clarity too. This may not be easy at first because we're naturally wired to see problems, and this pushes us into solution mode. Some useful phrases that we could use to show a little more empathy could be, I hear you, that sounds extremely challenging. You must be finding things difficult. Finally, having the same common goals. As mentioned earlier, support groups can be more casual and focus on things like self-care. And with all of these in place, trust and positive growth will be built over time. Whereas when one of them is missing, it jeopardizes that. Now let's explore how teachers and students can use positive coping mechanisms and build their resilience on an individual level. There will be times when we're alone with our thoughts, so it's important to have some self-care strategies in place. Let's look at 3 strategies that involve journaling. and can be used in any context. Again, teachers can be the ones to model this with their learners and get them off on the right track. Why journaling? Well, writing's been a tool of expression for hundreds of years. It's a tool used in therapy and for some time because of its benefits, which I'll highlight now. It helps us reorganize our thoughts, known as the cognitive change theory. It can be hard to unravel our thoughts when they're just in our mind, so writing them down helps separate them. It also, the opportunity to express feelings is cathartic. That means it's a way of releasing our emotions, and identifying or labeling our emotions helps us process them and prevents thoughts from becoming long-term stressors. This is known as the inhibition theory. Again, you can find links to these in the references at the end. It helps make sense of our experiences and gain clarity. Again, the cognitive change theory at play. And we're always going to be affected by setbacks, so it's not a case of avoiding them, as some popular self-help literature suggests, but working with them and using them as opportunities for growth. There are always opportunities to learn from our experiences, whether they're positive or negative. So to help people get started with journaling, I'd like to invite you to try the following 3 activities. When journaling, it helps to have prompts. You may have heard of gratitude journaling before, where you write 3 things down that you're grateful for. But for those times where it can be challenging to feel grateful, we can use the VIA character strengths as prompts. For those of you who are not familiar, the VIA Institute on Character is an organization that worked with teams of positive psychologists, social scientists, anthropologists from people all around the world. And they developed a system of 24 values in action. Over 700 studies evidence their benefits on improving well-being. So you may wish to follow up on this after the presentation and take a picture of the slide, and there's a link on there that can take you to their website and a survey that you can complete. For now, we're just going to use these 24 strengths as a reference point for this activity. So if you're watching this video, you may want to pause it and take a picture. I'd like you to imagine that these 24 strengths are different lenses to a stressful situation. When we're stressed, seeing our situation in a different way is sometimes the solution we need. So let's give this a go. I'd like you to think of a stressful situation and write it down. You may wish to pause the video and grab a pen. I'd like you to ask yourself, after you have your stressful situation, which strength could help me right now? What would, and then you put the strength there, think. What would forgiveness think? What would judgment think? And then what would forgiveness do? What would judgment do? Coming from a place of value has been shown to be more effective and connects us to something that's more motivational and natural. Here's an example. So someone's come in to observe my class and I'm feeling really nervous. A teacher might have this thought. Well, we could ask ourselves, what would humility think? Humility is knowing your limits and recognizing that everyone makes mistakes. So we might say to ourselves, right to ourselves, it may not be a perfect lesson. If I make a mistake, I'll just say to myself, there's that imperfection I was expecting. The way we think about challenging situations is often overlooked, but extremely influential. We either see challenging situations in a positive or negative light, but you may find more often than not, it's negative. You may have heard of the term fixed mindset. So when we imagine these thoughts, they might feel locked in our heads with no way out. We might catastrophize and have the same thought again. Whether we voice them out loud or in our minds, they do affect and lower our self-esteem and confidence. Now, I invite you to write a negative thought you've been having on a piece of paper. Of course, if you're watching this, simply pause the video. I'm going to give an example. It might be something like this. This is too difficult, I should give up. We've all been here before, perhaps when something is taking too long and we can't seem to find the answer. Now, how could we reframe this sport so it's more helpful? One of a growth mindset. Again, pause the video, turn the paper over and write it down. Someone with a growth mindset might think, this may take some time and effort, but it will be worth it. Here we can see the chance to move forward away from that thought to something that's more useful and opens up our perspective and possibilities. A final activity I'd invite you to try is something called the ABCDE model, developed by Dr. Albert Ellis. He developed a theory for confronting and challenging irrational beliefs and behaviors. If we don't challenge irrational beliefs and behaviors, they remain internalized and can be reinforced over time. So this model provides a step-by-step process in developing psychological flexibility. So for the first part, you think of something stressful. For example, I'm worried about passing an upcoming exam. We then move on to the belief. Well, this could be, my English is not good enough. We then look at the consequence. So what am I feeling? How's the stressor making me feel? You might want to write down an emotion. I feel anxious, inadequate, or unconfident. And what is the result of your beliefs? Do you tend to behave in a certain way? I withdraw from social situations, I smoke cigarettes, or I play more computer games. We then move on to D, so dispute. What's a different perspective to the situation? Could be, I don't know what my teacher really thinks of me. If I smoke, I might feel annoyed about not giving up smoking. If I play computer games, I'll have the same problem when I finish. And then finally, E, what is the new belief that can help me move forward? I can change the way I respond to my feelings. I can control the things I do when I have negative feelings. The aim here is thinking of a new perspective that can change an old, unhealthy belief system. Because as we said before, this can affect us for a long time. And if not addressed, it just becomes more ingrained and harder to break. So these are 3 journaling activities that you can try with students and also yourself. As we bring this session to a close, let's review what we've covered. The aim of this session was to improve teachers' awareness and understanding of positive communities. We discussed how they're most beneficial to our health, including lots of literature and research. So then, why positive communities are crucial, how to set up supportive and psychologically safe learning environments. We then looked at providing teachers with coping resources to help them when negative emotional states arise. So we explored 3 different activities that can promote our coping skills during different times: strength journaling, mindset cards, and Ellis's ABCDE model. I hope you found this session useful. So please reach out if you have any questions. Here are some references for you to do some further reading on if you found it interesting.